All right, so take a seat. Okay. Ethan, will you scooch this way? Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so let's start from the top.
Hi, I'm Nithya Tucker, and I'm one of the co-presidents of Her Space.
Okay. I'm Michelle, and I am the co-president of MSA.
I'm Ethan. I'm a senior, so is Michelle, and
Oh,
we're
yes.
both. I'm also the co-president of MSA.
My name is Max Moen, and I'm the president of Rainbow Connection.
Can you think of a person in your life who's either been a good or a bad example of an ally, and what did that person do?
I think somebody who has been a really big ally in my life is just my dad, because, he's not female identifying. He's always thought that I had the potential to do whatever I wanted in that sense, that I was smart enough, that I was strong enough, that I was good enough. Or he didn't necessarily have to say anything, but in fact, the not saying anything is what showed me how supportive he was.
I guess if we're talking like the religious and cultural side of my identity, it means a lot when someone who doesn't share any parts of your identity asks questions in a respectful and kind and curious way. That always has meant a lot to me.
Be genuinely curious about like the culture or religion that I come from, and want to learn more, and not just for their own benefit, or not just to be like, well, I have a blank friend, so therefore I'm not racist or I'm not Islamophobic.
I think that just for the SPA community and the community in general, the biggest thing to do is just recognize that female identifying people have problems that you may not be able to understand or relate to, or you may not even realize they face them all the time. But the first step is to recognize that, and the second step is just to provide that support. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be some monumental action or saying something profound. It can just be letting them know that they're equals.
Most of the people I came out to were accepting of it, so I was pretty lucky in that regard. And I would just say that would be the ideal for anybody who has to go through that, is to just be treated with acceptance and rather than doubt.
So, for someone who maybe is on the receiving end of somebody else coming out, what would you say would be the best reaction to let that person know that they are loved and cared for and, seen as an equal?
Well, I would say, first off, is there's a reason they're telling you that. There's a very large element of trust, I would say, and that is very important to remember, that you have been chosen for a reason, and you should kind of recognize that.
I'm sure you guys have both been allies for other people who have different identities to you. So when you are trying to be an ally for somebody else, what are you making sure you're doing for yourself and for that other person?
The first thing I always make sure to do is just listen.
It's important that you first recognize your own identity and you first realize what kind of person you are. For example, I am a female, I am Indian, so I'm not white. I am 17, I'm a senior in high school, go to a private school like SPA, in terms of the class hierarchy, I've been born into the higher up end of it, so I recognize my own privilege.
I would say that one of the biggest things that I try to do is emphasize my understanding, my empathy, my willingness to, not only, willingness, but also desire to really make it clear that I support whoever is going through whatever they're doing, or because of their identity.
If someone is sharing an experience that they've had with you that relates to their specific racial, religious, etc., identity, then I think it's important to not immediately be I relate to that because that's also happened to me in this way.
The big culture of wanting to be relatable.
Yeah.
And that kind of a conversation or dialogue, that's not the time to try to relate yourself, especially if it's a really traumatic experience and you're trying to relate it to something less so that you've experienced it.
How would you finish the sentence? An ally is
Patient.
Being supportive of people regardless of whether you can relate to what they're facing or not.
An ally is someone who actively listens and tries not to kind of speak over someone or someone's experiences.
There for you. regardless and always.